So, in related to Sunday mornings, we have some more specific questions about how we're doing things now. So, specifically, why can we not do a drive-in service here at New London like we're able to do at our Bedford campus?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. First of all, let me say this. I'm sure, like anything, there's areas of growth for us as we're looking in this crazy season to figure out how to communicate well. The question of why can Bedford have a drive-in service and why doesn't New London? Well, there's a really practical reason for that. And you see, Bedford was set up to be portable. So Bedford had a portable system. It was $50,000+ for the portable system there that they have at Bedford just to run the adult service. We actually, to open up Bedford, spent about $350,000 in the total portable experience, kids and everything. Many of you know that we partnered with a church several years ago in Puerto Rico, Mar Azul, and they opened up a second location last year that we were a part of. And one of the things that we did that we felt like God asked us to do was to take New London's portable system, the one system that really wasn't getting a lot of use, and donate it to them so that they could have services at their new location. Well, the amazing thing that God used for them in all of that is when COVID hit Puerto Rico, they couldn't meet in their first location. So if we hadn't given them our system, they wouldn't have been able to meet at all in this season. And so they've been using that portable system there. And so we love how we had no idea that that was coming. We love how God used us to do that. But that caused a practical problem though for us with COVID. Something we didn't see coming is all of the systems at New London are all permanently installed. And without going into a lot of details, to make them portable, we would have had to invest thousands, and in some cases, tens of thousands of dollars to create a system that could move outside. And that doesn't even count the amount of time each Sunday to do that. And like you heard me say previously, right now, we don't have the manpower to hardly do what we're doing set up weekly at New London at this moment. We didn't feel like it was responsible for us to put in the kind of money that it would take to invest the kind of money it would take to create a brand new system for New London that really we're about a month or two away before you can't even really meet outside anyway because winter's coming.
So while the Bedford campus and the New London campus experience looks a little bit different, we have one question specifically asking, why has Blue Ridge opened only for worship and communion while other churches are opening fully in person and broadcasting online? And along those same lines, a question asking, why is our main teaching online only?
One part of the answer to it is because I've had this question, we've all had this question, why don't you do what X church is doing? And I can't speak to what another church is doing, but as we said earlier, our commitment is to do the best we can to obey what we know. We still get the question, well, why can't I exercise or why can't I have the freedom to wear or not wear a mask? And frankly, you do have the freedom to do it. We, as a church, though, our choice has been, as I explained earlier, is to try our best to do what in this case, state government is asking us to do.
Again, to pull back and give a little bit behind the scenes, when we first started this COVID season and we first stopped meeting in person and we were doing online services, we were doing exactly what this question is asking. We were just broadcasting what was happening, where the band was on stage, the teaching was on stage. Well, I will tell you, in that first month of broadcasting what we were doing on stage to homes, the overwhelming, probably more feedback than we've ever received about services that I can remember was what is happening right now isn't translating to our living rooms. And so about a month in, we adjusted and we started realizing, okay, we've got to think differently to make an online service in a home engaging, and an in-person service, what engages an in-person service is going to look different than what engages a person at home. There's also all sorts of technical things that, again, without going too much into the details, you have to have a secondary group of people that are mixing cameras, that are mixing audio to make that experience appealing to an online audience. When we opened up Bedford in person, we took our expertise, our professional people that do the mixing who were helping mix some of the online stuff, and now they're mixing out in Bedford, and we just don't have the professional expertise to take what we're doing live on a Sunday morning and mix it down in real time to make it as engaging or even sound as good on a Sunday morning.
So in regards to the Sunday morning experience, a question asks, why are we so concerned with liability? Are masks and 6 feet of social distancing still necessary? And what can it look like in the future to respect those restrictions while protecting a Sunday morning experience?
I mean, liability is obviously liability for us as a church, but frankly, that's not the driving force for us. There's an awareness of it, but as we said earlier, the real reason we do 6 feet and mask and that sort of thing is those two reasons. One is this is our best understanding of what God wants us to do. It does not ultimately devolve back to what is my personal right or my personal rights, but what does God want us to do? Plus, the second part of that was we want to be sensitive to those who are high risk, high fear. So the reason ultimately does not boil back down to liability and walking in fear of that. The reason is, what does God have to say about it? What is our responsibility to Him and to the people that we're around?
There's multiple pieces of this. There is the Romans 13 piece that tells us to obey our government. So there's that piece. Now, we know the government can overstep its bounds, like Woody's already said. Then there's the other side that says, love your neighbor, like Woody has said. That's another piece. What is the most loving thing for my neighbor in this season? Not myself, not what I think I want, but what is the most loving thing? Then you've got this whole idea of this other ring of how the non-believing world views the church. Are we, as we read as we looked at the online service talking about humility this last week, are we unnecessarily offending people by not doing things that would be simple to do? Masks and social distancing are one of those things that can become a blockade to people, the unbelieving world, going, oh, look, they don't even care about us. And then you have that other ring of liability where a tragedy in this season would be for the church to get sued. And again, guys, this is not a fear thing. It is just a practical thing that we have to consider. The church to get sued and for us to be tied up years in court and distract from what we're really called to do. And a lot of those things, by just adhering to best practices and by the CDC guidelines, allows us to just kind of take that off the table. So those are kind of things. What is the government saying? Because God calls us to do that. What is loving our neighbor, loving one another, bearing one another's burdens as followers of Jesus? What does it look like for the outside world for us to take out unnecessary blockades? And then you have this small circle of liability.
So community is huge and integral to who Blue Ridge is. Relationships is one of our core values. It has always been something that we have really encouraged everyone who attends to be in community for a lot of reasons. So what would you say to those who feel that Blue Ridge has become a lonely experience? So for example, if you're attending by yourself, you have to sit alone. Or if you live alone and you don't have community or family and you don't have that outreach, how would you encourage them or explain to them why we're not doing something different to meet them where they are?
To take it to just what would I tell that person? Several things. I would say, one, hopefully you've already seen, whether you attended an in-person service last weekend, or you're going to see online, that we just launched over 40 life groups, or close to 40 life groups for adults. And those groups were meant to address exactly this. We see the need. We recognize it's a deficiency. Our heart breaks for the person that just has to come in and feels alone and disconnected. But here's what I know, and this was what God was already doing in us ahead of time. Blue Ridge could have felt like a lonely place because it was so big previously. And we were already realizing that there was a major issue of connection at Blue Ridge as a whole over this last season. COVID just highlighted it more. Realizing that there are already so many rules and regulations for people to follow, that there isn't a one-size-fits-all, especially in the season about how people are going to find community. So we kind of took the limitations of what a group could be. We removed all those so that some groups are going to be they're going to go through a book study. Some of them are going to be a sermon-based group. Some of them are just going to be a life stage group. Some of them are going to be, like I said, online, in person. On top of that, all of our care groups are still divorce care, grief share, CR, Lifeline. All of these groups are still available. Now, again, are they all available in the way that they once were? No. It's good and it's bad. It's pushing us to do new things and try new things that we probably wouldn't have tried. But it's also realizing there are some limitations we're going to have. Another thing is, you guys have heard us talk about serving. If you feel a lifeblood of Blue Ridge for years has been the serving community of Blue Ridge. And you're going to hear Woody, depending on when you're watching this, in a talk here, you're going to hear him talk about how serving the outside community is the new evangelism. He believes in this new way of reaching people. But you've also heard us talking about, so it's not just inside this place, there's the outside, but there is also the inside need. That would be another way to connect with people, is to get involved in serving in a community of people and becoming a part of what God is doing. And do we have all the answers on what that's all going to look like? No. And is the same serving opportunities available that were there before COVID? No. But there is all sorts of ways for us to connect that way in the church.
In relation to what we have available for kids and for youth, both here on Sundays as well as throughout the week, why does it currently look the way it does? And when can people expect BR Youth to be open on a regular basis for services, for events? And then for BR Kids, when will that be open in Bedford? When will it be open to everyone here at New London? When can they expect some of those things to start to come back?
Part of it will be determined by what COVID does. I mean, we're making decisions based on that, not exclusively, but we're making decisions based on that. I know that in Bedford, they are meeting every other week, and their intent is to eventually, sooner rather than later, come back to meeting weekly. We had to take this into consideration with the kids' programs. That is, how in the world, I'm not even a parent, how in the world do you keep kids 6 feet apart and mask on them? And so we're weighing out these things and want to move back to a place where there's regularity and those kinds of things. But once again, I'm looking forward to moving into the future, which is even better than what we once did.
So with the youth, we experimented with some things this summer. We tried at New London and Bedford to have an in-person experience for the youth on Sunday. They were met with differing results because Bedford's youth, the group is a ton smaller than New London. It was much easier to keep students social distancing. At Bedford, because they're meeting outside, there were shaded areas, just on a really practical level, that they could meet under so they weren't just getting beat down in the sun. That wasn't the case at New London. New London, it was much larger. It was much harder to keep everyone distance. They were baking out in the sun. So we realized that may not work at New London in this season, to expect the youth on a Sunday morning meeting outside. And then if you move to inside, you get a distancing because you've got a social distance. And so our rooms tend not to be square footage wise big enough to hold the amount of youth that would show up here at a New London. So you're just with those practical challenges. We experimented with a summer camp because of the law, with a day camp. The law said day camps could open back up. And we were assured by the leaders of that day camp that they had all of the governor's requirements for social distancing and all of that taken care of. But the reality was, as the day wore on, all of those things kind of just went away, and it looked like a non-COVID kind of season. Now, again, was there an upside? Did kids connect and all those kind of things? Absolutely. But when we looked at going, well, we tried it, we were assured that we were going to be able to do this, and it didn't work, we had to take that into consideration for perception, safety, all the above. So this idea of these life groups, of these smaller environments came up, and we've seen huge response. Now we will see over this next semester what happens. Do we hear stories of kids coming to Christ? Do we see students moving towards Jesus in new ways that maybe we didn't even see in that last season? We're hopeful, we're praying. It fits with what we felt like God was already doing in us as a church, and we're excited for the possibility of what God could do in these types of environments. As far as kids goes, actually, the interesting feedback we've received, we thought it would be impossible to keep kids social distance. Kids have been easier than adults. If we're to be honest right now in this season, the kids have been listening to the rules. They've been doing what we've been asked to do, which has been great for 1st through 5th. So this last week, New London opened up kindergarten, and they wanted to see how that would work. And the reason why they were a little nervous about that is because those kindergartners hadn't ever been into the big environment. And so they were worried. We're always concerned about how kids feel safe and apart and connected in this season. So the reason why we started with the 1st through 5th was those kids had already been in the big room environments, Be Our Kids theater environments. Kindergarten had never been in that environment, or the kindergarten kids that were moving up. So recently we opened it up to them, and from what I heard, it worked well. Bedford, obviously the building's not opened up, but we're shooting for sometime in the next month, once the building's open there in Bedford, for Be Our Kids to be able to open up kindergarten through 5th at least in that service. Now, younger kids. It's been explained to me by Be Our Kids that there's several issues with the super young kids. One, there will be no mask wearing because you're obviously not going to put masks on kids that young, which creates an issue. The struggle to staff servers, because there are servers that are uncomfortable on multiple levels. There are servers that are uncomfortable with one. What if they accidentally give a little kid COVID because of the interaction? There's that. And then there are servers that are authentically nervous about, okay, these kids are going to preschools and things like that throughout the week. What if I end up getting it and bringing it home? So it's a staffing issue and challenge right now. Now they're examining it. They're looking at how to make it possible. They want to be serving kids along that way, but there are those practical challenges.
So I love what you said earlier about the new evangelism being loving your neighbor, going into your community. It looks a little bit different, but that's huge. And again, integral to who Blue Ridge is. So we have a question asking, how are we reaching out to our community right now?
That's a huge question for me, as anyone who knows me would probably guess, because that's really why this church, in a very real sense, why this church was started. The church we were before this was a really good church, except we weren't reaching people who were lost. So Blue Ridge Community Church basically is a response to the need to reach people who are far from God. And so we moved to an attractional model, but the fact is we're sort of shifting here from the attractional model to more of a missional model. We've stated it like this: we're moving from come and see to go and be. I'm a part of one team that's fixing a mobile home with a family that's it's really in bad shape. It's got to have new flooring put in it. I know of another situation like that. We have a project set up where we'll be refurbishing one of the parks there in Bedford and inviting people to come with us, because a big part of it is what's the relational value here? How can we invite other people into it? Don't just go there and fix something and leave, but how can we leverage that? And so it doesn't look like it once looked. And serving is the new evangelism, and that's a conversion in itself for me. But that's how we got into Bedford in this particular case, by serving the community there. And it seems that that's the way God is leading us, going before us. to give us opportunities to build relationships and to share Christ with people. And so I'm excited again about the new possibilities as we go forward, especially in terms of evangelism.
We know that one of the markers of how God has used Blue Ridge in the past are the stories of life change of what he's doing. And so one of the things we're looking to change and adjust is that we're telling more and more stories of the things that we're hearing that God's doing and that he's shaping. So one of the things we're looking at leveraging, specifically it's unique in Bedford in that the Westgate Shopping Center there versus here at New London is in the middle of town. So that gives us access to the town and our facilities in a different way. And so one of the things it's allowing us to do, for example, we've just approved a GED program that can't socially distance in their facilities to use our facilities there. We're looking at other opportunities like that, even, and this may make some people angry, I don't know, even if it means some of our groups can't meet on site because of cleaning and the upkeep and things like that, saying, God, how do we serve the community at large and not just ourselves first?
Just so people practically understand some of the limitations that cleaning has put on us, can you explain that in detail for both campuses?
Yeah, so CDC guidelines plus our governor's guidelines for opening is the facilities need to be regularly cleaned between services. They need to be cleaned after every group meets in the services, or every group meets in a room along those ways. And so we only have 2 janitorial staff, and with Westgate Shopping Center, this opening up there, we've got over 90,000 square feet of facilities to keep clean. Add into that issue what we've already addressed, the challenges with people returning to serve. It's just created a challenge. If you open up this building to meet every night, the kind of cleaning that has to happen before and after, it just becomes an overwhelming task for a small group of people to keep up with. So again, that's why we've been taking small steps towards opening, figuring out systems in place. Okay, let's open the auditorium up on a Sunday morning. Did we get the systems in place? We've bought some extra cleaning equipment that helps make the cleaning of these bigger areas easier and more efficient. And so as we get systems in place, then we're opening up other areas along that way. We moved from Sunday mornings to Sunday nights with Celebrate Recovery because we looked at people that are dealing with addictions and things like that. We felt like we need to figure out how to make this space available to them. But the nice part is they all meet on Sunday. So even if the room doesn't get cleaned as well as it could, it remains unoccupied for 7 days, which is CDC guidelines. But it's part of just experimenting, opening slowly, seeing what we missed, what we could have done better to then create more systems.
I think this has gone a long way to put a lot of the answers that you all have been asking in one place so that you don't have to catch every Facebook Live. You don't have to catch every pre-recorded video or every Blue Ridge address. But there is one question that I think a lot of this can kind of be summarized in, and it's just, how is Blue Ridge doing? Are people still stepping into a relationship with Jesus? Are we still caring for new believers well? Will baptism be in our future?
I'm optimistic and really excited about some of the possibilities that are out there for us, the changes that are in front of us, the vitality that's in front of us. And so that would be my assessment of where we are right now. Jeremy, what's yours?
With any change, there are gonna be challenges, and you're gonna stub your toe, and especially change that happens this quickly. You are just trying to follow where God's leading in the midst of all of this stuff. And we believe God is at work. We know God is at work. We've got 2,000 years of church history, and none of it, as Jesus promised, has ever stopped the church from reaching people, from seeing new people in the kingdom, from discipling people along that way. We want to be a part of whatever God is doing in this season. That said, we are excited about multiple things. We're excited about what God seems to be building in the community of Appomattox and the Concord area. And we'll be talking about that stuff more and more. It's not an official Blue Ridge thing yet, but there's a group of Blue Ridgers there who have been meeting, that you've heard Woody talk about, that are meeting regularly, praying about reaching their community. We're excited about what's happening at the Westgate Shopping Center and the opportunities that being in the middle of that community is going to open. We're excited about what God is doing through our partnerships here at New London, with some of the stories of the impromptu baptisms that we've heard about, people that have come to Christ. We're excited about what these new youth environments, these discipleship groups, baptism. I just sent out an email to the elders this last week and said, guys, we've had 15 people sign up to be baptized here recently. How do we want to handle that? We're praying through it, asking God. We know we still need to do these things. What are they supposed to look like in this season?
That is so encouraging. And that was our last question. And I think the cool part about all this is it doesn't matter what it looks like here, because things are going to continue to change. And even if they stay the same for a little while, God is never going to change. And that will forever dictate how we move forward, how God leads us. So we hope that has answered some of the questions you all put forward. If you still have questions, feel free to reach out. Send them to comms@blueridge.org. If you want to stay informed, you want to stay connected, we have both Jeremy and Woody going live every Wednesday on our Facebook. We have Missions Monday, where somebody from our missions team is sharing local opportunities of how God is moving and how you can reach your community. You guys can check out our website, blueridge.org/life groups, to get into a life group, /serve if you want to step into community in that way. But we're excited to be able to answer a little bit of your questions now. And we'll see you guys next time on Pressing In.